What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I got another Piers Morgan debate coming in. This is a fascinating topic. As we know, Donald Trump has come in. He's talking about turning Gaza into the Riviera or something like that. And, you know, that's sparked, if you will, a broader conversation about how to deal with this situation. Now, we've just had a massive release of hostages from Hamas, as a matter of fact, released back to wherever the hell they're supposed to go. And so this is great. This conversation took place before that, and we kind of discussed that a little bit in the conversation. But once again, it's a very fascinating conversation. We got Cenk Uygur, we got Dave Smith, Dean Cain, who doesn't make much of a contribution, to be honest with you, on that. But before we get into this, I need you guys to do me a big favor. Smash that like button for me. That's a great way to help me out, spread out videos like this. I need y'all's help. You know, subscribe if you're new around here. I cover these every Saturday and Sunday, in case you didn't know that. But if you want to stay up to date with how you're being manipulated by corporate press news articles, I do that for the vast majority of the videos that I make. That's what I cover. Let you know how you're being lied to by the corporate press, because they do lie, they manipulate news, and we need that brought to everybody's attention, if you will, and that's what I do on a normal basis. So check out my regular videos. I just do these for fun because I enjoy them. But y'all share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. But without any further ado, let's break it down, y'all.
I mean, look, Trump's literally ignited a ferocious firestorm of debate with this Gaza Riviera plan. As with so many things that Trump does, the immediate response I would have is, well, what does he really want here? And I suspect what he really wants is for the leaders of Arab countries in the Middle East to step up and come up with a workable plan that actually gets things sorted, because Trump's right. Nothing else has worked.
Yeah. Trump is not right about one thing here. His plan is obviously asinine. We all can acknowledge that. It has no chance of success. It's ridiculous. But more importantly, why is he doing it? Can we be honest here? I know in mainstream media and cable news you can't say this. Can we say this here?
Yeah,
it's obviously because of his donors, right? I mean, Miriam Adelson gave him, that Adelson family over 3 elections gave him $337 million. Haaretz reported that she wanted portions of the West Bank and Gaza Strips annexed. So why is Trump saying we're going to own it? He's trying to trick MAGA into thinking after we let the Israelis slaughter more Palestinians as they try to push 2 million people out of their homes and their homeland, and after we finance that slaughter, which we're definitely going to finance because Trump, and to be fair to Trump, almost all the Democrats, all of Washington is owned by Israel. Netanyahu dog-walked Trump around the park, made him look like a waiter as he was putting his chair in. So we're going to pay for all that slaughter. And then Trump goes, oh, don't worry, because we're going to own it later. We're not going to own anything. You think Israel's going to give it back to us? No, they're going to steal that land. This was never about self-defense. We were right all along. It was always about the theft of Palestinian land. We told you so.
All right, Batia, your response.
I think that there's a really important point to be made here, which is that no Palestinians have been allowed to flee this war zone because, of course, Israel was not going to let in civilians from Gaza who may have Hamas members hiding amongst them. But also Egypt did not allow almost a single Palestinian to exit the Gaza Strip. Trump has been very clear that what he imagines here, rightly or wrongly, is the voluntary resettlement of Palestinians who wish to leave Gaza. Now, I know a lot of Palestinians who would rather live in the rubble than leave their homeland, and I respect that. But 40% of Gazans before this war were either employed by Hamas, by the public sector, or by UNRWA, or by jobs in Israel. None of those streams of revenue are going to exist now. And so the question I think we need to be asking is this: does the international community owe it to the people of Gaza to continue subsidizing their living in Gaza under Hamas rule, because that is essentially what has been happening until now. Now, of course, I do not support any sort of forceful removal of anybody from their homeland, but I don't think that's what Trump is imagining. It was very clear from the press conference that there's going to be this meeting in Riyadh between the Saudis, between the Jordanians, and between the Egyptians, all of whom have done nothing to help the Palestinians forever. And so I think this question becomes who owes who what, and that's really what Trump is trying to introduce here, is a new path forward.
Okay, so this is an obvious unsustainable situation we have going on over here. Now, Trump coming in talking about turning it into the Riviera, I've got some criticisms with that because, one, that would suggest that the United States is going to pay for this. And I am vehemently against this. I don't know what the hell Trump thinks he's trying to do with this. And, you know, once again, as I said before, where I see criticisms with Trump, I'm going to come in and I'm going to push back against Donald Trump on this because this is a terrible idea. I happen to agree a lot with Cenk Uygur here. Now Cenk Uygur, he's over the top with a lot of this, talking about the donors are doing this, and there could be some of that. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to suggest that that's not a possibility going on in Donald Trump's head, because he does do stuff for his donors. Now, if it's in the interest of America, see, nothing about this whole situation is America first. Nothing, there's nothing that I can see coming out that is America first. We need to take care of the homeland first, in my opinion. But once again, the president's job, right? Let Congress take care of America. The president's job, part of that duty is foreign policy. So he needs to get out there, and we need to start off with peace. We've got the hostages released. Now we need to fix the situation. However, a lot of people are overlooking the history of this situation, right? Because it's been going back and forth. I can't agree with what Israel is doing here. I just can't do that. They've killed way too many civilians for me to be on the side of Israel. I know a lot of people, they back Israel no matter what. And look, I'm a Christian, for crying out loud. So that's the Holy Land, for Christ's sake. Pun intended. Right? So I like Israel. I like what they stand for. But what they're currently doing with all this is just death and destruction incarnate. That's all it is. Now, I know a lot of people would say, well, October 7th, acting as if October 7th happened in a vacuum, right? They've been going back and forth. Hamas has been shooting rockets at Israel for a long time. And, you know, it is fair to say that Israel has been oppressing the Palestinians. That's fair to say. Why is that? Well, because of Hamas. Hamas is the root of the problem here. And that root, to be honest with you, how do we get that out? That's the question all along. How do we get that? How do we root that problem out? Well, there's some suggestions. Let's keep going and see if we can find some answers.
Just one more thing, Dave, on this, which is Trump's position is, look, all right, give me a better option. In other words, if it's not America that rebuilds flattened northern Gaza, which is clearly uninhabitable to families right now.
I have one.
Right? If it's not America that does that, who does it?
Well, I mean, look, if we want to try something new, what we could try is not giving Israel unconditional support and arming and financing.
No, but that's not my question. My question is who is going to rebuild Gaza?
I can answer it, Piers.
Okay, Cenk.
Well, the responsibility ought to be on Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, Cenk.
Yeah. So, as you know, Piers, from day one, what I said was Israel should use special forces. This bombing, indiscriminate bombing of the buildings was outrageous. It was always meant to level it. Hold on. So then what I said after that, Piers, if you remember, is you should do a deal with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank to give the occupied territories back to the Palestinians where it belongs, and have a two-state solution that we've always fought for. And that way they would have the authority and the credibility to be able to push Hamas out of the Gaza Strip.
Who rebuilds Gaza?
That way Israel doesn't have to do it. The U.S.
it?
doesn't have to do it. Yeah, I know. I'm getting to it. And so then I know Israel would never pay for anything. They'd try to make us pay for it.
Right,
We
so
have to
who
pay
does?
for all their bills. So you can't. So then you go to the Arab countries, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and you say, "Oh my God, we got a deal. deal. We got a two-state solution. The Palestinians are going to finally have a homeland. Now you guys pay for the rebuilding. I guarantee you that they do that. That is an easy solution. The only thing blocking that solution, that way America doesn't pay anything. There's no more killing. There's peace. The only ones blocking that are Israel, because they don't want two states. They want to steal Gaza, and now they just said it. They want
the other people,
it. They're going to steal it.
But the other people.
So there's no question about it.
Cenk, this all sounds utopian and so easy, except that, of course, you've still got a large Hamas presence, as we see with the release of all these hostages. We believe from American intelligence that for every Hamas terrorist who's been killed, they've already been replaced. The ideology may, if anything, have been fueled, and that ideology is committed to the destruction of all things Israel. So this full utopia picture you're painting bears no relation to reality.
It's not utopia. It's super simple. No. First of all, Piers, you leave it to the Palestinians. That's why I'm saying do the deal with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. You leave it to the Palestinians to drive Hamas out. So that's their internal business. But in order to do that, you have to have a deal for a two-state solution. And you make the Middle Eastern countries, the Arab countries that have always said that they want an independent Palestine, pay for rebuilding Palestine. It makes perfect sense. And if you say,
it does,
right
to the point. Okay, look, you had me right to the point. You say the Palestinians.
If you go to it and say that it won't work, you're going to the same talking point about how Palestinians are always going to be terrorists.
I get it.
And that's a ridiculous, racist Israeli propaganda.
No, I don't think that at all. But I think the idea that the Palestinian Authority will simply go bang and Hamas disappear, forget it. Dean Cain, let me bring you in here. You've been waiting.
It's not simple, but yeah, of course that's what you do. And they might be brutal about it, but that's
the Palestinian Authority is run
Palestinian business,
you've got a guy
not American business.
You've got a guy in his 80s running the Palestinian Authority, right? I do not entrust him, frankly, with all due respect, to run Hamas out of town. Anyway, I'm
giving you a perfectly viable solution.
All right,
perfectly viable. And you're coming out with excuses because Israel wants Gaza. Be honest.
I'm not coming out with any excuses.
Can you admit that Israel clearly wants to steal Gaza? Wasn't that the whole point of this self-defense?
Let me answer you. I certainly believe there are people in Netanyahu's cabinet, Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and others, who absolutely would like that. That's been my problem with this for a long time.
Okay, now personally, this might come as a shock to some of you guys, but I happen to agree with Cenk on this one, right? Now, his idea is a little bit pie in the sky. I don't think it's going to be that easy to get Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all those countries to pay for this, right? There's going to have to be some sort of deal going on here. Israel's going to have to be cut out of this almost altogether, right? Because I happen to agree that, I believe they want the West Bank. Of course, they've been occupying that area for a long time. They've been colonizing that area, settling, whatever you want to call it. They've been trying to move into that area over a long period of time, slowly, right? So they want this territory, obviously, because why? They won it back in the day. That's their territory, and they gave it away to the Palestinians. This is just, it's an untenable situation we have going on here, because you have some people that have been conquered outright. Now they're making demands that you give us our state, you give us our, no, you have to fight for that. You can't just be given sovereignty, for crying out loud. Like, that's not how reality works, right? I understand the plight of the Palestinian people here, and they must fight for their land, and that's exactly what they're doing. But once again, when they do that, they do it in a terroristic way. They don't build an army and fight Israel's army, for crying out loud. What do? October 7th. Didn't happen in a vacuum. Obviously, I understand that. But what have they been doing? They don't fight as a traditional army. Well, they can't. They don't have the resources to do so. But why do they not have we could go back and forth all day on this. And I don't know, anybody that takes sides in this situation is ideologically driven, to be honest with you, in either one way or the other, because I'm not on either side. I'm trying to work out all the differences. How can we have peace? Because once again, the United States being the leader of the free world, it is kind of is in a situation in a way incumbent upon us to come in and mitigate for all these situations, to create peace. If we're going to be the leaders of the free world, we need to be the leaders of the free world, for crying out loud, and work these situations out, work these peace negotiations so everybody can live with whatever agreement that we happen to agree upon, right? So there needs to be some sort of agreement when it comes to peace. We can't just give this land to Israel, but yet a two-state solution doesn't seem to be a viable option outright because of Hamas. Hamas needs to be rooted out. That ideology absolutely needs to be rooted out. But how do we do this? This is the question. I think it all boils down to Hamas being eliminated. Now, I've stated in the past before, how do you do that? You know, you send in the commandos, you send in the Navy SEALs to get rid of these people. But once again, that's not going to fix the issue either, because the ideology is still there. As long as that ideology exists, there's always going to be conflict between Hamas and Israel. And they're going to build up forces over time. You'll get a little bit of peace here and there, build up forces and start lobbing more rockets. It's just how it is. I don't see a fix to this except to root that ideology out of there. I think a good situation is for one of these Middle Eastern nations to take the Palestinian people in, right? But once again, that would be one of these nations giving up territory to give to them, because they're going to go into Saudi Arabia or somewhere else and demand sovereignty. It's just, I don't really know how to fix this. Let's see if they do.
I mean, Dean, look, you know, a lot of people are outraged, as always, by what Trump has suggested. But is there merit to his apparent madness?
Absolutely, 100%. Look, what we're just failing to talk about here is October 7th. You know, and I'll quote Douglas Murray here. You don't get to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And there are consequences to losing it. And Hamas needs to be absolutely driven out and ended in Gaza. That's unequivocal. Otherwise, they're going to completely keep going with the same circle, teaching people through UNRWA and the schooling there that Israelis are drinking your blood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're fomenting this. We're paying for half of this stuff through USAID and the other things that are going on. It's ridiculous. I think Israel has every right to step up. I think President Trump has made it clear that he's going to back them 100%, unlike this last administration. And I think we'll actually see something really happen in this area.
But the problem seems to me is there is no real evidence that Hamas have been defeated. In fact, if anything, these propaganda videos they're showing with the hostages, there seem to be a lot of Hamas and a lot of support for Hamas for these, certainly in the early ones. And I think that would be very...
I can't believe they don't love Israel.
Well, no, but this has been my problem
again.
My problem again.
62,000 people there.
Yeah, but just to go back to things.
Wow, they don't love Israel. That's so shocking.
Well, hang on. I'm going to go back to things.
Yeah, would you love your oppressors? I wouldn't love my oppressors. I wouldn't love people who murdered my family.
There, you sound like one of the Israelis.
You're wrong. The Palestinians didn't start this war. Israel started it with the occupation. You don't get to occupy Texas for 57 years, and if Texas fights back, go, oh, look at the terrorists in Texas. They started the war. No, Israel definitively started a war. America first. I'm tired of them. Israel first. Israel first. Give them $300 billion. Pay for their genocides. Get out of there. America first. And let these poor people, Palestinians, go.
So
the number one problem is Israel and their infinite greed for land, and slaughter.
So just to be
clear, everybody knows that.
Just to be clear, Chen, because you're going a bit further than you had before. Just to be clear, you think October the 7th was an inevitable consequence of the way the Palestinian people have been treated?
Guys, I hate October 7th. When Hamas does violence, they do so much damage to the Palestinians and the Muslims. But two things can be true at the same time. You could have something awful, and then you could use your brain to figure out, hey, why did that happen? And does anyone think that any American wouldn't fight back if they were occupied and humiliated and their land stolen and their families bullied and harassed and humiliated for 57 straight years? Of course we would fight back. Of course any set of human beings would fight back. But when Israel oppresses them and uses their might of their giant military to crush them, that's not terrorism. But if Palestinians fight back, terrorists! It's absurd. It's propaganda. It's both terrorism.
Okay.
So yes, the Hamas doing terrorism is despicable. And when Israel does 60 times the terrorism of Hamas, we should call them what they are, a terrorist state, and we should stop funding them. Don't send our taxpayer money to go fund terrorist government of Israel.
All right, Batia, your response.
In all honesty, it's hard to say that Cenk is wrong with this. However, the only problem with calling Israel terrorists outright is because what terrorists actually lets the people know that they're going to attack. Like Israel does this. Doesn't justify what they do because they still end up killing many, many civilians, children, people that have nothing to do with this. People that have absolutely nothing to do with this. Doesn't make it right. Right? Does not make it right whatsoever. But I think he's right that Israel wants this territory. Like, if they would just stop for a second, right? They've beaten Hamas into submission just about. They haven't outright given up. But they've beaten these people. There's way too many civilians getting caught up in the mix. And this is, once again, it's driving more ideology. It's propagating Hamas's ideology even further, in other words, right? And this is going to just create more terrorists. This is not how you get rid of Hamas, for one. And for two, that, like I said, there's way too many civilians getting caught up in the mix. I really can't see an end to this. But, at the same time, Israel is also, like I said, they're notifying the other side when they're going to attack. They're bombing, trying to be specific, trying to, targeted. But I just really don't think that bombing them is going to fix anything. And that seems to be all Israel's doing. Why can't they send in the special forces? Right? This is going to take a long time and it's going to be dirty. But you get informants in the Palestinian people. You get people to go in and you try to find Hamas. You try to find their locations, blah, 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 blah. Try to work all this stuff out. Send in the commando teams. Navy SEALs, like not our Navy SEALs, obviously Israel's Navy SEALs. Well, screw it. When we had American hostages, I would have been totally fine with sending in SEAL Team 6 or SEAL Team 8 or any of the SEAL teams, commando teams, Rangers, doesn't matter. Send them in, root out the terrorists, get those people out of there. Try to build peace. But that's not what Israel is doing here. Israel is not trying to build peace by continually bombing. I know there's been a ceasefire in place, but over the past year, and however long it's been, year and a half, something like that, since October 7th, they haven't done much to try to close that wound, if you will, right? But with killing all the civilians. And I understand, look, once again, anybody that gets on any side of this is clearly ideologically driven because, once again, Hamas intentionally sets up their operations in churches, hospitals, schools. It doesn't matter. It's like, how do you root these people out? Once again, you bring in the Rangers, you bring in the specialized surgical strikes, right? You minimize the civilian casualties, which they don't seem to care about, to be honest with you. It really does seem like Israel just wants to take this land. I think, from what it looks like, their actions, I know that nobody's going to come out right and say this, but it absolutely looks like they could care less about civilian casualties because, sure, they notify the other side that they're going to bomb, but they don't make sure the civilians get out of the way, in other words. They still bomb this. They're still killing way too many civilians, in my opinion. They seem to not care. It's almost like they want to genocide the Palestinians, but making it look like they don't want to genocide the Palestinians by saying, look, we notified them we were going to bomb these people. But the fact that the people don't get out of the way, it's like, what do you do about that? So I could go back and forth like this all day long. We've got evil on both sides here. And I think that's what we need to get across to people. It's going to be extraordinary to find some sort of peace here, to be honest with you. It's going to be a miracle. And if Trump can get this done, that's going to be the most impressive foreign policy achievement of his entire lifetime, if you ask me. Because, once again, how do you side with either side at this point? Before October 7th, I could see Israel having an argument here, right? Hamas just continually lobbing rockets into Israel. That's ridiculous. Come on, you guys, you need to stop doing that. Sure, it's not hurting Israel. They have the Iron Dome, for crying out loud. But at the same time, you know, we're sending in humanitarian assistance. USAID was dumping a lot of money into Hamas, into Palestine, if you will, if you want to call it that, Gaza, right? For humanitarian assistance, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, like these people get water pipes to have running water like the rest of the world. We're trying to develop this nation, and Hamas takes those water pipes and makes rockets out of them. Yay! There we go. It's like, what do you do about that? And what's funny is, you know, it's hard to pick a side once again, but the Palestinian people voted for this. Now, I know the other argument on that is, well, they voted under duress. They still voted for Hamas, and they didn't have to. Like, if other nations would come in to help, Egypt, Jordan, like, do something. You know, these other nations, they just don't want nothing to do with it because they understand the reality on the ground. These people are oppressed. They are in an area where, honestly, they really shouldn't be. They lost the war, right? The UN created Israel for a reason, and they've been fighting ever since. They've somehow found peace with Egypt, and I think that's working out pretty good. Somehow we need to get to a peace deal. Not sure how that's going to work out. Not sure the roadmap, the pathway, the blueprints, whatever you want to call it. Not sure what the blueprints are going to be for this. But we need to get there, and I think Israel does need to back down first on this one. I honestly think they need to back down first. Because you can't have, like, they are actually oppressed. I will outright admit that. Palestinians are being oppressed outright. So the oppressor does need to back off. Straight up. They need to back off. If they were to back off, work out a deal with the Palestinian Authority, I think they could find some sort of solution here. But once again, that's not going to stop Hamas. I think that's a tenable situation. Work it like what Chink is bringing up right there. I think we could work with that, right? But the Hamas factor is still there. Hamas factor. It is a stick in the spokes at this point. It is a third wheel that is destroying any sort of peace negotiations that could go on with all of this. Them giving the hostages back. Good job, buddy. Why did you have the hostages in the first place? I'm just saying. Let's keep going. I got another clip.
Fonz.
I just want to talk about this idea of Israel owning the United States government, because it seems to me that people who make that argument want to have it both ways. On the one hand, we give Israel exorbitant amounts of money. And on the other hand, somehow they control us through the money that we give them. And it's never been clear to me, like, what do they use for that control? So people will say AIPAC, but AIPAC spends about $3 million on local races in America, on congressional races. It's not a lot is
number one donor in this campaign cycle.
The Israel lobby
is the number one donor. They're literally
among
bribing
the American people is the fact that Americans are supportive of Israel. It's like the way that the NRA was popular when it was because Americans like their guns. These lobbyists they're powerful to the extent that they reflect views that the American people already have. And I think that's a really important point to point out here, because you cannot take an unpopular view and just use money in order to push it. And nothing has proven that, like this last election cycle.
That's what the drug companies do.
Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley outspent Donald Trump 2-1. Kamala Harris outspent Donald Trump 2-1. Money in politics has been revealed to be nothing compared to the will of the American people. This is an amazing thing. I mean, as a lefty, I was really against Citizens United. And it turns out, actually, the American electorate has a very clear idea of what it wants. If you look at Donald Trump's cabinet, every single person in that cabinet, which is, by the way, the most diverse ideological cabinet in American history.
No, it's not.
They all have a very similar view of what it means to be America first. There's only one thing that they all share, and they all seem to think that having a pro-Israel point of view is very much inherent in the America First ideology, because Israel is a good ally, Israel brings a lot to the table, we get a lot more bang for our buck.
Zero,
in fact,
nothing,
I think Israel
nothing.
should stop taking aid from the United States, because I think Israel has paid a much higher price for
Yes,
that
I
aid
agree.
in terms of its sovereignty. It has been bad for Israel to take all this money because it means that the Americans can tell them what to do. And they shouldn't accept that. They should be sovereign nations. I'll just make one more quick point. Sovereignty is not something you can give somebody. It's not a gift you can give to another nation. I feel for the Palestinian people, but the idea that somehow Israel, which won its sovereignty through winning wars, owes them something in the form of a sovereign state. This is just ridiculous. Like, this doesn't actually make any sense. Shank, you said who should rebuild Gaza? You said the Arab nations should rebuild Gaza in exchange for the two-state solution. But what Trump is about to do is get a deal in which they rebuild Gaza without actually having to have a two-state solution. So he's actually sort of a little bit ahead of the game in the way that he often turns out to be.
Okay, let me bring in.
You know how unrealistic that is. You think Saudi Arabia is going to pay for Israel to occupy Gaza? Nobody's going to pay.
No, I don't think Israel wants to occupy Gaza at all.
They're
Or they
not
would
that
have
big
done
a
it.
sucker.
If Israel wanted to occupy Gaza, it would be
it's
occupying
absurd.
Gaza right
None
now.
of them
It
will.
clearly doesn't want to be occupying Gaza.
Yeah, none of them will do that.
Why, Shank, according to you,
look,
why is Israel not currently occupying Gaza if they want it so badly?
Because they're waiting for America to give them permission. They were waiting for this election. That's why they supported Trump. So Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were terrible on this issue. They gave Israel everything they wanted, but Netanyahu made a deal with Trump, and that became obvious to me that the reason for that was just Trump was going to give them even more, which is just to let them grab this land in Gaza, which is going to cause a massive conflict. And guess who's going to pay for it? We're all going to pay for it.
Okay, let me bring in.
Batia, come on, you know the donors control things. The drug companies are deeply unpopular, and they win every time in Congress.
All right, let me bring in.
Buy our Congress, and so does Israel.
Made the point.
Honestly, and I hate to say this, but I agree with Cenk on this one. I think the donors do have a lot of sway over Congress. This is why I always talk about, you guys. We need to get rid of Congress. We need to get rid of everybody in Congress. Screw it. Even the people that I like. Like, the people that I like, they can stay. Right, seriously, because there's only about 10 of them, and that's not going to make much of a difference. But, I mean, if we got to get rid of all of them to get rid of all of them, then let's get rid of all of them, right? If you understand what I'm saying there. Because we need to also take politics out of the money, right? This is something Dave Smith brings up in this full debate. If you want to go watch that, go watch the full debate. It's interesting. I mean, he says that, and it's like, yes, there we go. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they're doing a pretty good job, as he says. He says that very thing. They're rooting out corruption. They're rooting out all this nonsense payment garbage, trying to downsize the federal government. But, you know, we need to take, I think, and I say this all the time, y'all, we need to get the lobby interest out of Washington, D.C. There's an entire infrastructure set up for lobbying Congress at this point. These big corporations, they go in, they pretty much buy off congressmen. And, you know, she's being a bit naive, you know, thinking that, oh, they don't have no sway over this. You know, it's a lot of people don't want to admit that Donald Trump can be swayed by a donor, right? And just kind of look what's going on. Of course, it's yet to be seen. Yeah, right? It remains to be seen if Donald Trump is actually going to go through with trying to essentially what is tantamount to an ethnic cleansing in Gaza and uproot all those people out of that land to ship them off somewhere else, to turn it into a Riviera. I think it's a nonsense plan. I think it's a bad idea, right? But Donald Trump does this a lot, though. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with this. Is he going to be able to get this situation fixed? That's the question. Is it going to be fixed? It's right. It's just nonsense to think it's going to turn into a Riviera, right? So saying that gets the conversation going, and we get ideas, and the best idea wins or whatever. But getting back to the clip, I think Donald Trump does get swayed by the donors a little bit, right? Now, I hate to say that he's getting swayed by Elon Musk because I'm really enjoying what they're doing right now. But that, once again, to push back on that idea a little bit, it's Like, okay, so if you got a guy like Elon Musk, and you see what he's done at Twitter, you see the companies that he's built, how well they're ran, how efficient they are, and their profits are really good. You know, it's like, okay, so is it that bad if, because he's a donor? This is an argument Cenk makes all the time. Oh, well, Elon Musk is the biggest donor for Donald Trump's campaign, and he's got all the sway. He's just President Elon Musk, blah, 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 blah. But if what Elon Musk wants to do is make America great again by rooting out all the nonsense, making the government more efficient, which it's obvious to anybody, even the people that don't want to admit it on the left, that this is a good thing. Cleaning out all the corruption, getting rid of the nonsense payments, you know, trying to make the government run more efficient. It's obvious that, yeah, sure, if that is just Elon Musk, the donor, doing that, does that matter? Right? If Donald Trump's allowing Elon Musk, because he donated $250 million to his campaign, if he's allowing him to do this for that reason, just because he donated that much money to Donald Trump's campaign, does that matter? Because the end result is what matters, right? Now, I could see the argument for Miriam Adelson and, you know, Donald Trump trying to take over Gaza, if you will, which kind of goes against the interest of Israel at that point. Because if the argument is that Israel just wants the land and Donald Trump says we're going to own it, hang on just a second. That's not in Israel's interest to allow for that. So, what do we do about this, right? What is actually going on here? Have no idea. Have no idea. We'll see how all this plays out. We could speculate all day long, but it's just going to be speculation, in my opinion, right? But I like what Elon Musk is doing. I like what Donald Trump is doing. So far, so good. Couple of criticisms. Not sure. Yeah, overall, it's a positive. Just straight up, it's positive. Nobody can argue that. You've got the mainstream news. They're coming out so hard. Oh, we got President Musk. And I just love to listen to those people. It is just so fascinating. And I know I've used that word heavily over the past few days, but it's the best word to describe the response from the corporate press and the mainstream narrative machine, because that's all they are. They just want to portray this narrative that orange man bad. You know, it's like the old meme. Donald Trump comes out in support of his own impeachment just to make Democrats not impeach him. Which is, it's funny. I think that was, I forget who put that meme out right off. The Babylon Bee put that meme out. And it's funny because everything, right? Well, everything that's going on with Elon Musk and Doge, it should be viewed upon pretty well. And so far, the polls, they're showing favorability for what's going on. We like it. We are loving it over here. Some people aren't, of course. But, you know, I imagine most of those people are people that get their news from MSNBC, CNN, blah, 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 blah. Those places. Because, you know, the narrative over there is this is evil. They're just doing this for their own gain. Which Elon Musk is not getting a salary from any of this. And as we will see in my next video is going to blow their narrative right apart. Not just with the specific story that we're going to be talking about, but in the bigger, broader scope of everything that's going on. But I think I'm going to wrap it up on this one, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. I know some of you guys love to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. So do me a favor and leave your comments down below in the comment section, if you will. But that's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. I would greatly appreciate that. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.